he wants to do this mic right here. This is a friend of mine. This is somebody who I really value. He was actually one of the first multicultural students I met at NDSU. We got a prominent picture hugging after an open mic because he did a great job. I did a great job. I appreciate this man, not only because he's a championship yo-yoer, not only because he's a stand-up comedian, he's a stand-up guy. And it's rare to have that in North Dakota. I mean, everybody's a stand-up person in North Dakota, nice, but they're not always multi-talented and not an a-hole when they are multi-talented. And so I appreciate this guy. I know that he is signed. He has a manager, Natalie Sparrow. So he does his thing with that. He be doing the yo-yoing. He be doing the modeling. You know what I'm saying? He throws that little diversity in the mix. And so I'm not gonna take his time up, but I just want y'all to give a round warm of applause for John.
Alrighty. I just ripped the mic right off the stage to assert my dominance. I don't know. Just kidding. That's weird. Okay. What am I doing right now? Hello, everyone I can't see at home. Fred, I think I broke this. All right. Okay. Cool. Look at all the people watching. There's some. We good to go? Can everyone hear me? I saw Jade's watching. Jade, my friend. Yay! Everyone can hear me. Cool. How are you guys? Good. All right.
Already, you might have told me. I feel bad.
It's been a crazy year.
It's like an open mic night that they usually do on campus.
Oh, what? What's going on? Hey, everybody. Oh, Natasha, mute your microphone. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, just before I do this, I just want to say, like, this is really awesome. You have an amazing voice. I loved your spoken word. That was really awesome to watch too. Dandy, I always love watching her. I've been with a lot of these guys for like a while. Before I do comedy here, just because it's comedy and everything, and I want to be respectful of this event, I just want to let everyone know I will talk about certain touchy topics such as like race and some other sexual themes. So if you have kids watching, this is probably not and you don't want them to watch, this is probably the time to let them know to go to bed or something like that. I just want to be respectful of everyone's time. So yeah, okay, let's talk about it. So COVID-19 has been kind of weird. I don't like certain people's attitudes towards this disease. For example, like some of my friends don't want to go out. Some of my friends do. And like, I heard this thing you've probably heard before. He's like, aren't you worried about getting COVID-19? I heard a guy say, he's like, I don't know, man. I've probably already gotten COVID-19, to be honest with you, which is weird because it's a disease that can kill you. Like, we're not like that with diseases that won't kill us. Like, imagine if people did that with like STDs. like you meet someone, you go back to their place. Let's say you're a woman, you meet a man at somewhere and you go back to his place. She's like, hey, do you have like a condom? And he's like, no, probably already had gonorrhea. You would leave that dude's studio apartment. You would do it right away. Because if he has that attitude, he probably lives in one. So that's my first joke. All right. Yep. I'm wearing a pink sweater right now. It's kind of cool. I look like a giant Asian piece of bubble gum. It's great. I love it. My name is John. I'm adopted. I'm adopted from the Philippines. Yeah. I love Frederick. He's so supportive. I once was bombing so hard in front of a crowd of students. Okay, so the first time I ever did stand-up on campus was a rehearsal for a diversity event, and I didn't pick the most appropriate jokes to do at the rehearsal, and I mean, but Frederick was the only guy who was like, "Look, man, you didn't do as bad as you thought at the rehearsal. Apparently, you did worse." All right, so that was good. Oh, thank you, Jamie. That's nice to see. Yeah, it is hard. Last year, I told myself I wouldn't do any outdoor comedy shows. I wouldn't do any of them. I'm only doing indoor comedy clubs and comedy events. And then this disease happened. And then I got asked, hey, do you want to do like a comedy show for 20 people in my backyard where the stage is my son's tree fort? I'm like, sounds like a dream. I have been waiting to do stuff like this for a while. So No, it's been good to be doing this. It's been a weird year period though. I had a stroke back in May, which is a true story. I had a stroke. What happened was it was my first day on the job of a new job, which is really great. This is what happened. I got hired to work for a Chinese food manufacturing company, and I found out right away they didn't ask me the right questions during the interview, because the very first day the HR lady was like, by the way, we were going to ask this, but you speak Mandarin, right? And I was like, I do not. And they were like, we'll figure it out. So they tried to get me like to say a few like very common Chinese phrases to these Chinese workers I was in charge of. I tried to go out on the floor, say hello, how are you? And then apparently when I was doing that to these workers, I was starting to slur my words and I felt very lightheaded. And then apparently I thought I should go back to English. And then I started slurring those words. Meanwhile, I have like 35 Chinese guys looking at me like, this guy sucks at both languages. Luckily, my boss knew what was going on, so she took me to the hospital, and they took my blood pressure, and it was 232 over 156, which is it's really high if you don't know what that means. It's so high. I looked up on WebMD, like, what happens if your blood pressure is this number? And every single one of them's like, you die. It was like every single answer. There was no in between, and so I asked so when I told me, when the doctor even was like, when they took my blood pressure, was like, hey, this nurse is like, this is his blood pressure. And he's like, no. And then he comes in, he's like, well, I'm not going to lie to you, man. Like, usually we see this on someone a foot taller and 200 pounds heavier than you, but here we are. And I was like, high score though, right? 232 over 156. And he didn't think that was very funny at all. He's like, no, you're dying. I'm like, okay, good to know. So I asked him at our checkup point, like, how did I not die? And without skipping a beat, he's like, honestly, man, I don't know. It's probably because you have a very big head. I was like, cool. The one thing I was really insecure about during high school, saving my life. There we go. All right. All right. Thick skulls save lives. Yeah. This is great. I wish every comedy show was like this. Yeah. What am I talking about? I'll do a couple more jokes and I'll get out of here. I'm going to talk about something that you guys are probably not going to agree with. I'm going to say something that you guys are probably not going to agree with, or most of you watching or here are not going to agree with. But I feel like, we've dealt with so much like social things throughout the year, so many different conversations, that I should be able to talk about the things that I value very, very much. So here I go. I believe that Mark Wahlberg is one of the best actors that's ever lived. See, no one cheered. That means I'm a brave person. All right, here we go. Because he's had such a diverse career when you think about it. Like, most people know Mark Wahlberg for like Transformers or like Daddy's Home or Daddy's Home 2. But I know Mark Wahlberg because the very first Mark Wahlberg film I ever saw him in when I was 11 years old on HBO, and it was an old movie called Boogie Nights. And I doubt any of you know what movie this is, so I'll just explain it to you. Mark Wahlberg plays an up-and-coming pornographic actor in the 1970s with like apparently a 14-inch penis. And this movie won an Oscar. At the end of the movie, he kind of like does, I'll call it the big reveal. I don't know. He's like standing up in his dressing room alone by himself, and like he's looking in the mirror. It's very dramatic. And he's like, all right, so you know what? One more time for me. And he stands up and he just whips it out. It's the only time you see in the whole movie. Everyone talks about it, but this is the only time you get to see it. It's the end of the movie. And when I saw that as like an 11-year-old Asian boy, I was like, wow. Clearly, that is the biggest. But also, what is average? So I had puberty unit, and I asked the next week in puberty unit in 5th grade, I asked Mrs. Johnson, how big is my penis going to get? And she said, that's weird, and didn't answer my question. but I wanted one. So I kept asking her, and she was like, I'm not the person to ask. I'm like, isn't this health class? Don't you know? I mean, like, it's a valid thing, but she didn't answer. That's fine, whatever. I learned that's not the only time you get to have health class. In fact, you get to have it in middle school. So I asked 2 years later in 7th grade, but because it's middle school and middle schoolers are really not the nicest people in the world. When I asked Mr. Bart how big my penis was going to get, one of my classmates, Max, stood up, pointed at me, and said, look, John, it doesn't matter anyways. You're Asian. You're going to have a small penis anyways. And I was like, so is that like 10 inches? Or like, no one will answer my questions. Oh, man. I'm so glad I don't go to the school anymore. I did that joke over to Minnesota State University Moorhead, and they were not thrilled about that. I asked them like before the show, like, can I not? What do you want me to not talk about? And they were like, well, I don't know, just like don't say the N-word. And I was like, just don't worry about me doing that. Like I don't know. That's not the vibe I hopefully give off. But oh well. All right, I think that's a good enough amount of comedy. Thank you so much, guys.
How big is it, John? The question on all of our heads right now is like, wow. Long John. Okay. That was hilarious. I was over there dying. I'm glad that the camera didn't zoom out like 20 seconds before he gave up the mic